Randi Zuckerberg. She's the founder and CEO of Zuckerberg Media, and more importantly, she's the author of .complicated and Dot, and a mom working in the tech industry. So please welcome Randi.
I'm a mom first and everything else after.
Awesome. Have a seat. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
So
great to be here. I was like, wow, there's so many women in one room at CES. This is amazing.
It's the only place where you have to wait online for the ladies' room.
It's so cool.
Yeah, everything else, no line.
Best dressed room in all of the conference.
So I want to, of course, talk a little bit about your book because I've read it, a whole lot of people have read it, and it's filled with wonderful information and advice and tidbits of all of the topics that we've been talking about, which is really being a parent and also being a professional and trying to balance that, and how to tame that tech monster, which is supposed to help you, but sometimes, you know, kind of takes over.
It does. And it's interesting because obviously sorry, my necklace is clinking. Fashion over practicality, as always.
But you look fabulous.
Thank you. So obviously, I am a huge believer in technology and social media. Was just an incredible experience to be on the front lines of Facebook for 6 years. But it was interesting because when I had my son, that was the first time I started to really question and rethink my own views on technology. I think it's very easy in Silicon Valley to get caught up in what we're building right now, what we're disrupting right now, which industry are we eating their lunch right now? And when I had my son, that was the first time I looked up and started thinking about the future. And I started noticing more of our bad behavior with technology, about how people are watching concerts through their cell phones and they're out at lunch and they're texting their friends. And I thought, gosh, if I want my son's relationship with technology to be different than this, I need to start doing something about that right now.
And live in the moment.
That's right, living in the moment, and you know, maybe for every problem that technology solves, it accidentally creates new ones in its wake. And I think we're starting to deal with a lot of that in society and in our relationships.
Yeah, it's amazing to see people just so caught up in Facebooking the moment or Instagramming the moment that they don't have a memory of where they were because they're so busy taking pictures.
There's an interesting stat that I read about teenagers today. I talk a lot about life logging, that trend, and there are a few very tech-forward folks wearing Google Glass in here, so a lot of people embracing the life logging trend, but something like 57% of teenagers, according to a recent study, felt that if they didn't document a moment of their lives, it was a wasted moment. That the moment might as well never have happened, and that they think about how they're going to document a moment before they even experience it. So, like, even before they would walk into this room, they'd already know how they were going to Instagram it and put it on Google Plus, and exactly. Mm-hmm. So there's part of that is really interesting and exciting. I think children today are growing up far better storytellers than ever before. I never learned the skill of telling a wonderful story in 140 characters or a beautiful image. On the other hand, I think children are also basing a lot of their self-worth on things like likes and retweets in a way that can be very dangerous.
Yeah. If you don't get enough likes and retweets on your picture, it's not a good picture, or what you're doing isn't good. And that brings me to something you wrote about in your book. For kids, you know, we talk about bullying, and then we talk about cyberbullying, and you know, even you talk about it a little bit as a grown-up, and you say the internet can be a mean place.
The internet can definitely be a mean place. I think especially, I know I have a very strong viewpoint on this, but I talk a lot about in the book and in the media about how I'm very anti-anonymity online. I think people hide behind pseudonyms and anonymity to say just hateful, terrible things that they would never, ever say to someone's face. And, you know, I'm a grown woman. Like, I can take it most of the time. Sometimes I just pretend. But especially if I look at a teenager or a young adult who doesn't have that thick skin, how sometimes, I mean, you just deal with the trolls that are out there, and you wonder. So for me, I'd really try to advocate for parents trying to steer their children towards sites that encourage real name, real identity, and the more that you can kind of stay away from anonymity and avoid that, I think it's not going to solve all of our cyberbullying issues, but it'll at least be a step in the right direction.
Right. I want to actually stop peppering you with questions for a moment, and I want you to share your experiences. You know, you started working at Facebook when you were very young with your brother. You had a job before that.
Yes.
And you've been doing this wonderful Zuckerberg media and lots of new exciting things, and you have a 2-year-old. Tell us a little bit about your momtrepreneur journey.
Thanks. Well, gosh, I wish that I could say that I, saw the light of how amazing Facebook was going to be early on, but mostly I went a little bit kicking and screaming because I loved living in Manhattan. I felt I was 23 and living the fabulous Manhattan life. And my brother started saying, hey, you work in a marketing agency. I could really use someone with internet marketing skills, which really meant he wanted someone to work for free. That's really, let's get real, like that's really what he meant. And at first I just wasn't at all interested, and it took me going out to California, seeing just the office, the founding team. I'd never seen anything like that. In New York, what I was accustomed to was you work as an account executive for 2 years, and then you can hope to get a raise, and then you're an account executive, and then you're a managing account executive, and you just put in your time and you rise to the ranks. But suddenly there was this world in Silicon Valley where you didn't have to pay your dues the traditional way. You could create it yourself and own your success and your failure, and that was so exciting to me. I tried to stay very entrepreneurial my entire time at Facebook. So do I have time to tell like a 4-minute
Sure,
story?
absolutely.
We used to do these things at Facebook. They still do them. A lot of in the industry do, called hackathons. And the rule with the hackathon was you stay up all night, which I know does not sound that much fun for most parents, but you have to trust me. It was fun. You stay up all night, but the only rule is that you have to work on something totally different from your day job. It has to be just a passion project that you've never given yourself time to work on. And then in the next morning, everyone gets up on a stage like this, presents to their colleagues, and then everyone goes and has breakfast. What we saw was that some of the presentations were so good, they would actually make it onto the site as real features, and it was never the most senior people in the company. It was always like the intern or the person who had just started that day who had just these brilliant, great ideas. So for me, what led to my mompreneur journey was actually stemmed from a hackathon. I was obsessed with television and social media, how those worlds were coming together. And I thought, gosh, look at a brand like Starbucks that has 50 million fans on their Facebook page. Why aren't they doing, their own version of CNN right on their Facebook page? Why aren't they doing 24 hours of original programming? They have more viewers than most television networks. And I thought, I'm gonna just try this out. So I grabbed a camera, I grabbed a bunch of engineers, I started interviewing them about their projects, and anyone could watch live. I think 6 people watched live, and 2 of them were my parents, and one of them was Francine, who's like sitting in the audience somewhere. And I didn't even make it to stay up all night, because I was never really good at that. And about like a few weeks later, CAA, one of the biggest Hollywood talent agencies, called me and said, Katy Perry would like to come on your Facebook television show to announce her tour. And I was like, shit. I have to pretend this is like an actual legit television show now. And I mean, fake it till you make it. I grabbed like a bunch of interns. I was like, pretend you always work on the show. This is your full-time job as far as you're concerned. And it went really well. She sold out her world tour in minutes from the live stream, and then we proceeded to just have dozens of celebrities and world leaders parade through Facebook to be on the show, culminating in getting a call from the White House, which still boggles my mind. Like, I think only Jack Bauer gets to say that. Like, the White House is calling. And President Obama wanted to use my Facebook Live show to do a town hall to all of America. So that's where my book starts. For those of you who pick up my book, it's me getting that call from the White House and being like, what do we have to do? And I have to like get MC Hammer in to see the president. It's a whole thing. But for me, that was the moment that I really thought, gosh, that was a passion project I dreamed up in a hackathon. If I gave myself the permission to work on that full time, what would that look like? And that really led me on my journey. Now, a week after the president came, I gave birth to my son. He arrived in the world a month early. I think I was just so relieved to be done with that. And that everyone says, don't make big life decisions like right after you've had a baby. And of course, I sold my house, quit my job, did everything you're not supposed to do. But it's
and here you are.
Here
and
I
have
am.
to say, I've seen you. I saw you do Facebook Live here a few years ago, walking around the show floor, interviewing people. And I was actually at ABC when you did the ABC politics stuff. So I have seen the evolution of what you've been doing with Facebook Live. And it's just incredible because you could see that you grabbed it. You loved it. It was a passion. You grabbed it and said, this is what we're doing. And it's that laser focus we were talking about before.
Thank you. Well, it was definitely exciting. And gosh, I loved my time at Facebook so much, but I also realized there's so many other platforms out there. And if I was limited to just doing live content on Facebook, I couldn't fully realize my dream.
And so off you went. So what's happening now?
Off I went. We have so many exciting projects, but what sometimes you have to listen to the market tell you what they want to. So I did a lot of public speaking. I was traveling, working with a lot of brands. And one thing that I kept noticing was that I would give a talk usually to a business audience about Facebook and social media. And then I'd get off the stage, and everyone would come up to me with all of these personal questions about tech and their children, or tech in their lives, or why is my kid uploading this thing on Snapchat? What is Snapchat? What's going on? And I realized, gosh, all of these people around the world are asking the same questions, no matter where I am. It was almost like I was like their personal Dear Abby of the internet. And I thought, maybe the market is giving me some signals on what it wants me to do. And I think part of being an entrepreneur is being able to both have your own laser focus, but also to get feedback from the audience. So because of that, I launched .complicated, which is our newsletter and blog community site to try to answer a lot of these questions. And from that spun a book deal.
And all real life, relatable parenting,
real life.
Digital etiquette questions.
Exactly. I mean, even when you're sitting in Silicon Valley, you see these people who are running the most tech-forward, innovative companies, but then they still go home and their parents struggling with the same things. We're all figuring this out together. And I thought, gosh, if even we haven't figured it out in Silicon Valley, then there are millions of people around the world struggling with these who don't really have anyone to talk to or any community. And so we got really focused on the .complicated community and then on working with brands who are interested in reaching kind of tech-savvy moms and families and parents and how to really connect those two.
Fabulous. Will you indulge us a few questions? I know you get them
Absolutely.
all the time, so I'm sure that there are questions. And do we have a microphone out there? Okay. I can't see anybody. Oh, there's one right there.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Hey, a couple years ago at this wonderful show, I met David Huang, who I believe is a founder of Vantage. And one of the greatest gifts I brought my daughter was a safe space to introduce her to the digital topography, and I had an opportunity to oversee that experience. And a big portion of that for us was identity. And I guess what I'll leave you the thought where we went, and tell me how you might add to this. I explained identity and truth of that matter, and she goes on by her first and middle name. Happily, those were available. So we're as close to real world as we can be without her being identifiable. What could you add to that for parents who want to introduce their kids to a space and yet not give up too much information? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a really great point, and actually I write about that a lot in my book. I actually write about how your child's digital identity today even starts before they're born. It starts from that first sonogram you post or that first announcement. You're creating a totally complete digital footprint for your children from that day forward. And I think a lot of parents don't think about that much. They don't think about that when they're posting photos of their children or blogging sometimes or some of the things we post. we forget, we would do anything for our children to be safe and be successful, but yet at the same time, we might also be contributing to a digital footprint for them that they might not love when they come to the time that they can reclaim their own identity. So I think it goes both ways. I think definitely having those discussions with your children, I love the idea of using the first and middle name, but also making sure as parents that you're setting an example for them because they're taking cues from your behavior as well.
That's a really good point. I mean, today, most kids do have a whole digital footprint of everything that their parents have posted that
That's right.
they've never approved or said that's okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
I often wonder.
Randi, my name's Mary Rockman, and I am such a huge fan of your blog. I retweet it all the time. It is truly, it speaks to me every time I read your writing, and I think it's wonderful. So I wanted to say thank you, and thank you for what you're doing for working mothers and those of us that struggle with this every day of trying to, shield our children from the harried life that we lead, trying to balance it all. I loved your post before Thanksgiving, really wonderful, and I had my team blasted out on their networks as well because I thought it was so fantastic. But I am curious, how do you set that example if you've got something urgent going on and you need to take a break? I try by explaining to my kids, but they're 10 and 7. How do they understand? So I'd love to learn more about your opinion with that.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't say that we are, dot.complicated is an open community, so anyone who's interested in writing about their own complicated relationship with technology or how they solve issues in their family and their work lives, we'd be thrilled to have any of you guys here as guest writers for the site. I think just to kind of answer that question a little bit, there's a lot of talk now about having it all and being well balanced, but for me, I like to give myself permission to be what I say well lopsided. I think as long as it kind of all balances out in the long run of life, like it's okay to be like totally into your career for a little while and then like totally step out of it and really into your family. It's okay if you're having a crisis at work to like be all in that in the moment and explain to your family that that's what you need to do. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do everything and to do it well all the time, which is just not sustainable. So I say, you know what, be well lopsided, just make sure it balances out in the long run.
I love that. Love that. Okay. Randi Zuckerberg, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story. Thank you.